Welcome to the Divine Advantage Podcast. Here are your hosts, Eric Skeldon and Brian Orme.
What's up, everybody? Good to see you, Eric.
Good seeing you, Brian. What is up, everyone? We are here, the Divine Advantage Podcast. Hope everyone had an amazing Thanksgiving. Did you get some good food and family time?
You do some feasting over there? You were in Kansas, correct?
Yeah, we were in Kansas, the middle of the country. On the way out, we got stuck in like a literally long dirt country road, and we got like stuck in a ditch. And man, I regained all hope for humanity. Someone came up in their big truck, a young kid, and he's like, "Hey, you need help? You need it pulled out?" And he got his chain, pulled us out of there, and it's really cool to see. I don't know. Kansas has a place in my heart. My family, my mom's side of the family has been there for many, many generations. So
my dad grew up in Hutchinson, Kansas.
Oh, come on.
I'm connected to there as well.
Yeah, there's something out there. It's like the middle, Wichita, Kansas, like the middle of the country, but there's something. It's a flyover state for many, but Kansas and Texas strong. So awesome, Brian. Well, we got a special guest today. I'm super stoked. We had a few people who got to connect us and tell us. And one of my favorite movies is called The Matrix. And our producers have actually worked with Morpheus from The Matrix. And anyways, our guest is the founder of Growth Matrix. His name is Patrick O'Meara. He's located in Clarkston, Michigan. He's married with his amazing wife, Rosella, and daughter, Annalise. The founder of Growth Matrix LLC, a global services organization that helps individuals and companies realize and achieve their potential. Over the past 30 years, he has been a senior leader with Globe Services, software, and business consulting companies, and has served some of the largest and most complex corporations in the world. Patrick has led strategic international delivery projects where the team members performed as one global unit, exceeding anticipated targeted results. Over his career, he's managed a portfolio of business services spanning from IT, finance, operations, talent, and organization transformation. And we are super stoked to bring on Patrick today. So you guys welcome him to the stage.
Good to see you, man.
Yeah, absolutely. It's great to be here. I really appreciate you guys bringing me on the show. And I have a Kansas connection also, so I have to share that. So I actually graduated from high school, from Iowa High School, go Mustangs, and I graduated from Pittsburgh State University in Southeast Kansas and Pittsburgh, Kansas.
Oh, yeah.
So I moved there when I was a sophomore in high school, and fantastic experience. Amazing people, just like you were saying, Eric. Amazing.
Yeah, I was working on with a seller out there of some, like a portfolio of a couple of houses, and I was working on him sell some houses in Pittsburgh, and then had another friend who his family's from out there. So yeah, it's amazing all the Kansas connections. So Patrick, it's cool to us getting to connect over the past month. And so for people who don't know, you've done a lot in corporate America. You've helped, these units. You've seen big Fortune 500 companies, how they operate, what makes them tick, what works in the inside. And on this podcast, we really studied, even how kingdom principles and little things like honor or creating a healthy company culture where people aren't putting each other down. And I've even found how sometimes even the high performers, if they're very negative or they're like very like lone wolf high performer, like sometimes even that, even though they do good sales numbers, but if they're very if they're very toxic, it can actually still harm the company, even if the one person has good numbers, but they're toxic. And so it's interesting, some of the different studies. I mean, if you look at books from Good to Great by Jim Collins and some others, I just reread, and it's really cool to see the fundamentals of business. We believe that people can build businesses and build legacy and transform people, culture, their staff, and then obviously the customers. It's really a way for us to impact the people in the sphere of society we're around. So I'd love to hear more about your hero's journey and, going through growing up and then going into corporate America and some of that hero's journey you have done.
No, I really appreciate that. Yeah. What you're saying is exactly correct. It's, nobody, a culture of hate, if you will, or of backbiting or um, competition where you have to put the other person down for you to be lifted up, those types of things. They don't, they may provide good short-term gain, but they're not like long-term sustaining type cultures. And so, yeah, growing up in Kansas, actually moved back to Michigan with my family before I finished my college education. I left school after my junior year, was really on a journey to find myself, and came back, started a small home improvement business, and then ended up working for a landscape construction company called Miller Landscape. Amazing people at that company. And through a 5-year journey, decided to go back and finish my degree after I was married to Rosella for 3 years. And then after finishing, started my corporate journey, actually working for a small boutique that did custom software development in the automotive industry back here in Detroit. And so they're basically writing custom code communications type software between suppliers and original equipment manufacturers, GM, Ford, and Chrysler, and then started assembling solutions, pulling together custom software development with consulting with different technology firms, and really found that over time I had developed a fastball for really understanding what corporate senior leaders were looking for and how could I assemble a solution to help them become successful, help them grow in their role, as well as help their division or their company grow also. So started in a collaborative type environment throughout my career, and have had the privilege of working with some amazing systems integrators. I've actually worked for a stint for Volkswagen of America. They had a technology brand called Gatus, and actually helped to assemble solutions around the globe with them. And then ended up at a global consulting organization, audit consulting company called KPMG. Was there for 7 years and oversaw the growth initiatives, and helped lead and manage the global account with General Motors. Then went to Ernst & Young, helped to do the same role with Ford Motor Company. And then throughout my career, I've worked with John Deere. I've worked extensively with Toyota. I recently left Korn Ferry, which is a global, one of the largest executive recruitment firms in the world, and they actually also have a one of the largest HR and organization transformation consulting organization. So was there for 7 years and worked extensively with some of the big brands that you see day in and day out. So that's like the Cliff Notes version of my journey. And then through it all, the focus has always been, how do I bring honesty, integrity, truth, fight for things that are credible throughout the journey. And I'm not alone. Many people in corporate America are fighting for the same things. But hopefully that helps give you a snapshot of a bit of my background and some of the things I've been focused on.
Thanks, man. It's great. I mean, it's interesting. I've been thinking about this just generally past few days about how there really is many times a divide between sacred and secular, right? And there's sacred things and there's secular things.
Mm-hmm.
And if somebody goes into the quote unquote corporate world, they're going into the secular world. And I think sometimes when we think about the kingdom influencing that space, it's like it's got to be evangelism like we'd see on the streets of Bangladesh, and it's like, what has that journey looked like as far as translating the kingdom into these systems of society and pretty big corporate entities, right? But you're able to bring in the kingdom in a way that the language and the framework is not only helpful, but it's providing a fruitfulness that's really the fruit of heaven, whether they know it or not. What's that kind of look like for you?
Yeah, I think more than anything else, what I learned early on is that a kingdom focus is a love focus, and so it's loving everyone with respect and honor, looking at their expert contribution. I mean, I've had the privilege of working with some of the brightest minds in the world. regardless of what their faith was, what their past was. But the focus always is how do I love them and appreciate them and honor them across the board. So I would say that's number one. The other thing that I would bring out is a little bit of a play on words with what you said, Brian. The word secular by definition is like without God. And I would say that there's no place on earth where God can't go. And so what I learned was that to embrace every background, every culture, appreciate the good things that come out of them, and honor them from that perspective. But I think loving and appreciating everybody, and then what that does is it draws people into a close relationship, because you're not actually trying to get them to do anything. You're just you're just loving them where they at. And then as the relationship develops, I've had the opportunity to share my faith. But I think like with Solomon, everything that he did was with such excellence, and that's always the pursuit that we should have with kingdom, that it actually draws people into wonder. Wow, not that everything I did was excellent, right? But that's my pursuit, that's my purpose. So when it was connecting with people, it wasn't. It was really a connection of, wow, he cares about me. He asked me about my comp plan. He asked me about what will take for me to be successful. He really wants me to succeed. And so in that, you have the opportunity to really bring, I think, the authentic perspective of Christ, which is to love. So I hope that gives you a perspective of where my heart is on that.
Love that. And you've worked for some of the biggest, consulting firms in the world. Talk about, the industry of consulting, going in, as an outsider, really having a third party perspective, not just having the upper management's back or middle management or, the main core staff, but like really just coming in and saying, how do we solve the problem in whatever department or wherever you're looking to solve? And what are some things in the industry that you learned that not a lot of people know about the consulting industry of solving problems in these departments and these large middle-sized companies? And then after that, would love to learn some of the things you really feel like, as like, what would the kingdom do, like with the excellence? If it was 100% kingdom excellent, like consulting company, what would they do? But I would first love to learn, what was some of the things that you really learned through that people that have a business, maybe they have a $5 to $20 million business, and they're like, man, like these are some things that in my business, if I would have tweaked just a little bit, maybe it could improve.
Yeah, absolutely. I think when you look at the large consulting companies and you navigate with senior leaders from around the globe, what you find is that there is a pure pursuit for excellence. Because the only way that you can solve some of these large issues that are going on in the marketplace, like the global disruption in the supply chain, those things are just crazy complex. But if you look at what helps tame that complexity, it's the quality of the supplier relationship that you have. For example, Toyota is outstanding as a culture in honoring its suppliers, and they really do treat them as family. So when hard times come, for example, it's embedded in their culture. We take care of our own. And they have a huge storehouse of cash assets so that they can weather storms, because they've prepared in their culture for difficult times, weathering those times. So I would say one thing is at global scale, people are always focused on that. I think also at global scale, what you realize is you can have a really cool solution. And I've used the word scale a few times, but will it actually scale to solve the global issues that are taking place? So if you're creating technology, it's great if it works in a small sample environment, but then expand it out to where it's now having to take care of 300,000 people instead of just 10 people, what kind of infrastructure is needed, what kind of consulting, project management, that type of thing is needed in order to make that solution successful. So I've always found that at every experience, as I've navigated throughout corporate America and throughout those large consulting companies, that they actually do pursue excellence, and they do appreciate um, high quality people that are really just focused on coming in, executing according to the plan, and then getting out and then looking for the next strategic solution from that perspective. So hopefully that gives you some perspective on the global consulting side. I think also when you look at assembling teams, because that's a huge part of how you collaborate around the world, is you have to build relationships in every region of the world. At least in my world that I came from, every region of the world, every country that's impacted. And not only do solutions have to become localized for the local cultures, but language is always a part of that, of course. And with technology, the language piece has actually gotten more, maybe not more simple, but easier to solve that problem. But understanding the cultures, and I think the thing that holds scale together is a culture that is authentic, a culture that actually, I had one senior leader that I worked with, and he would always kind of like shed a tear whenever there had to be layoffs or things like that. So you thought, oh, he's a really authentic guy. But then he would surround himself with people that at times could be abusive, and short-sighted, and only look for results only, and kind of like, well, people are just expendable. So you look at this, like he was playing a role, but the people that he surrounded himself with weren't representing what he was representing. So you kind of stand back, and then the best people kind of say, well, that's not a safe environment for me to excel. And so I think that all of these types of things in building a really strong culture, those are things that even kingdom cultures have a difficult time embracing: authenticity, honesty, putting a performance plan together with your people that you don't renege on when something hard happens to the company, or somebody like closes an amazing global deal, and you didn't think you were going to have to pay that person $1 million, and now you want to pay him 750. It's that type of integrity that I find, whether it's a big global corporate company or whether it's a kingdom company, small, medium, large. Those are the types of things that people struggle with from a culture perspective.
That's so good, man. I mean, it's interesting in the day that we're in with artificial intelligence, which I'm a fan of personally. It can help in a lot of ways, but it's the human capital, I think, is becoming even more valuable in the age that we're in.
Yes.
That human connection and the authenticity connected to that. In the midst of that journey of connecting at that level, you may not be able to share the depth of some of these things, but have you seen kind of some of the outcomes? I mean, not just from a business perspective, but like on a personal level, whether it's a CEO or a C-suite, role, that through authenticity and vulnerability, perhaps something just opened up inside of that person and brought a level of breakthrough and really the kingdom invading into their life.
Yeah, it's a great great question, and a great something great for me to comment on. I think that when COVID hit, I'm thinking of one senior leader in particular at a global brand, which I won't mention, that I was working with. And I was having dinner with him a couple years after COVID, and I was like, what, how did it impact you? And almost authentically, in tears, he said, I never really understood how valuable people were until all of this was happening across the board. That they didn't have to do layoffs; they protected their group. He was able to protect his division. But it was one of those things where he really stood back and he's like, I'm going to change the way I do business because humanity was so much in my face and I had to deal with things so much because the stresses that came about because of the COVID experience, young moms that are working, they have to work from home now and they're hiding in the bathroom, doing Zoom calls, trying to get in and get out in 15 or 20 minutes before their kids cry, just those types of things. And then you had people that were displaced, like I can't work in my home the way it is. And so they would actually go and try to find other alternative places to work. So it just like created stressors. And as a senior leader, he was faced with that, like for the first time, because the corporate insulation kind of keeps everybody, but then when that keeps everybody tame it. But when that disruption took place, it was like, wow, now I'm in a situation where I actually have to work with my people in order to help keep them together. And I thought that was beautiful, just transparency on his part. And he's a different person. He's a different leader as a result of letting himself. That's what he said. I let myself almost become more human in order to deal with those situations. So I hope that addresses what you were mentioning.
No, it's really powerful. I mean, what is in the midst of those types of dynamics and the relational side, which is amazing. You talked about solutions as well. I mean, what does that look like as a believer, mind of Christ? Obviously, we can read material and go into in a consulting situation and have a framework based on maybe someone else's framework
Sure.
and understanding. But what does that look like? I'm going into this corporate setting and I have a divine advantage. Our whole name of the show is Divine Advantage, right? Where we're going into whatever business or setting it is, because there's the mind of Christ, there's an edge. What's that look like in the manifestation of solutions in some of these different environments?
Yeah, absolutely. I think first of all, I grew into understanding that part of my kingdom mandate is to operate with the full perspective, as much as I can receive anyway, the full perspective of what God really wants to bring to the table. We know he wants to bring excellence. We know he wants to bring love. So my routine on a regular basis developed into saying, Lord, I'm not going to draw a conclusion on a particular situation, whether it's a team member or whether we're architecting a solution. I'm not going to make a decision on that based on my experience without including you into that conversation. And just to be able to pause, even sometimes just stopping before I walk into a boardroom or whether I walk into a C-suite conference room and saying, Lord, I want you to be a part of this conversation and give me insight and give me perspective that can help solve issues and solve problems. An example of that was I was working with a large technology company, and they were trying to solve a particular business issue, a technology issue, and they were just in and out of meetings over the course of a couple-week period. And they had met with I was invited to the discussion, and they were just, it was a complex issue at that time, and they were like, oh my gosh, we have to solve this by the end of the week or we're all going to lose our jobs. And from my experience, I couldn't come up with a solution. So I excused myself and actually went to the restroom, and I just sat there and I said, I need a kingdom solution. I need perspective that maybe is uncovered. And a phrase and a concept came to my mind, and I walked back into James chapter 1, if you need wisdom, ask for it. And so I felt like I had received insight. I went back into the meeting and I said, I was thinking about this a little bit more. What do you think about A, B, and C? And jaws dropped. And I was like, uh-oh, I either am being perceived as a simpleton, or maybe I just tapped into something. And they said, we went over that scenario a week ago, and the way that you described it, but we dismissed it. But the way you described it, it was as if you were in our meeting. We're going to revisit that. They did, they applied it, and it ended up being the solution that they were looking for. So that on a regular basis is how we're supposed to be operating. It's what I purpose to do, to operate. Even when I'm involved with clients, I don't know exactly what direction to go. Sometimes it is applying some type of a process or a perspective. But sometimes what the Lord will do is he'll redirect you to say, like in working with a company just recently, we need to focus on your kingdom identity. I think I was kind of sensing fear that they weren't enough in their, they were a kingdom company, that they didn't feel like they were enough operating in their kingdom identity. So we spent a couple sessions just saying, hey, where are your treasures? What's the biggest value really that you bring to the table? And it ended up being love, caring, discernment. Of course, discernment for what solutions need to come out there. But we stopped talking about game-changing products, and we started saying, well, let's refocus, recenter ourselves on our kingdom mandate. And then what happened is creativity started to come out for new and innovative products, new thinking around how they would approach their biggest clients. How could they even go and pursue other clients where maybe they didn't feel confident? So maybe a couple of examples from that perspective. But I think that's the kingdom way. But I think people have to kind of take a deep breath and say, I'm gonna do business the kingdom way, which means I can't draw a conclusion without asking the Holy Spirit to be a part of everything that I do.
Yeah, I think that's a great pausing point to just for the listeners, like to stop and really, really know that you don't have to have all the answers. You don't have to have all the answers for your customers' problems, for your own problems, and that you can actually stop, take a deep breath, and say, you know, I need wisdom, God. I need wisdom in this situation. I need wisdom in my marriage, in my company, in our finances, and ask for wisdom. And, he's a good father. He's not going to give you a rock when you're asking for wisdom. He's going to give you wisdom. And so, yeah, take a second and think, at homework after this, what do you need wisdom for, and be open to receive the wisdom for the problems you're going through, the problems in even if you're an entrepreneur and you're working at a company, work at that company, solve the problems in that company. And how have you seen, Patrick, for people who are entrepreneurs who are like, I don't run the company, I don't have equity in it, but people who can solve these problems and actually like get promotions, and they see them, they receive favor like Joseph was in Egypt, just by solving problems for governments, for leaders.
Yeah, so that's my 33 years in corporate America, in a nutshell. And I think that when we bring excellence to our team, when we bring excellence, even though we don't have full control over the value chain of a company, we do have authority to influence. For example, let's say I have a boss that is difficult, right? Maybe he doesn't respect my value system, but I take that on as okay. I'm going to need to learn how to love this person, even though they don't respect who I am. Because we can complain all day long about the hardships that go on, but if I have a difficult boss, for example, and I choose to pray for him or her, to love them, to bring sincerity and authenticity, what I've watched over time is that they have either been allowed me or allowed our relationship to grow, and they turn out to be like the most amazing sponsor I've ever had, and that has actually happened. And then oftentimes, if they don't want to embrace it, they move on to other things. And I've seen God open up doors where He has brought in leaders from that perspective. The caution is we don't ever want to be in a situation where we start like proclaiming that that person is a bad person, right? If you have a difficult situation, it's our job, our position is to love, and it's to bring excellence in everything that we do. And like you'd mentioned in with Joseph, he did that and was always honored by God and was able to be raised up. And I've experienced those things. Persecution is real, whether you have your own business or whether you have, whether you're, in a company, whether it's a small company or a large company. But I think that the Lord shared with me when I was being persecuted for my faith in business and maybe pushed aside or maybe overlooked for certain things. The Lord always loves a good resurrection, right? Daniel in the lion's den, he loved that resurrection of Daniel being delivered from that. And I think that what we need to understand through difficult times in working for other companies or working for structures that maybe don't acknowledge the faith that I have is that God does want to show up in those companies, and he does actually want to bring light into dark places. And if we don't bring that light, then it doesn't get brought. And so we need to understand in our kingdom mandate, we serve a purpose to shine that light, to love those that are around us, to bring excellence in everything that we do. And through that, I've seen great favor. I've seen promotion. I've seen other people operate in that same thing. So it's sort of the package deal of how we can operate in a kingdom mandate. I hope that does that answer your question, or does that give you perspective on what you were asking?
Yeah, that's great. And man, this has been so great. And Brian, do you want to talk? We have a newsletter, and we're going to actually start even taking some of these interviews and creating some of the top principles from this to put in this newsletter as well. So it's a free newsletter to build, scale, and grow your business. Brian, do you want to talk? How can they find it, Brian?
Yeah, go to kingdombroker.com. You'll be able to sign up there. We'll put a link in the show notes as well. And it's 100% free. There's no gimmicks. We're not selling you something. It's just free content every Tuesday morning. It'll come into your inbox. And it's got incredible insights for building a business, buying or selling a business, scaling, all sorts of things. And so definitely check that out. It's called the Divine Advantage Newsletter.
One other thing I'll throw in there to be a bit shameless is that I did come out with a new book. It goes on sale actually on 12/1, and it talks about everything that we're talking about. I interviewed 5 entrepreneurs and talked about what helped make them successful. I commented on those things. And then I took 21 of those concepts and created a 21-word growth challenge. And basically what it is, it's an opportunity for you to take, like, how do you become respected in the marketplace? And it has a rubric that says what's unproductive if you want to be respected, what's productive, and then what's accomplished from that perspective. And so when I got done with the book, I really felt confident that it really represented my management style. For anybody that is either working in a large corporation for another person or has their own business, I think that it's an opportunity to maybe evaluate yourself. What am I doing to become more accomplished in what I'm purposed to do?
This is gonna be amazing. And awesome. When will this be out? Does it say December 1st?
So on December 1st, so on Friday Thursday night at midnight, so into Friday, we'll post the link, and it will be sold exclusively on Amazon right now, and so they can just click the link on the website, and it'll also be on my Growth Matrix LLC social media channels, and it'll be I think it's the kind of book that people have, as they've reviewed it. I've had a superintendent at a global road construction company read sections of the book, and he's like, I thought this book was going to be over my head. He said, I loved it because it just related to where I was at. I've had housewives read it and they loved it. And I've had other entrepreneurs read it and they're like, it's just one of those practical things you can kind of keep in your hip pocket and say, if I want to be a servant leader, what are some of the concepts that I could really embrace like right now from that perspective? So I think it's going to be something practical that people can use and sharpen their skills moving forward.
Definitely check it out, guys. Get on Amazon December 1st and be the first to get that book. Last question, at least I have on my end, is, I love the simplicity of what you're talking about, of serving people in a system. Whether it's business, technology, whatever the system is. And I think some of the perspective of the body of Christ is we need to conquer a system, colonize the system, and we lose sight of the people that are in that system. And was there a shift for you, that type of a focus? Has that kind of always been there from the beginning, where you began to see the system of business differently, in the sense of honoring those that you disagree with? Maybe you don't share similar values, but it's like that honor and that love, that compassion that begin to draw from the Father. And then the impact of that, kind of the tentacles reaching out into that system and seeing transformation. Was that always there, or is it kind of a progression for you?
I think the seed was there. I think I always wanted to bring a kingdom culture into everything that I did. But to your question, I was extremely frustrated when I would have, because I wanted to win, right? I wanted to reach my goals. I wanted to conquer and all of that stuff. And then I was finding myself butting heads with people that didn't agree with just me succeeding. They weren't coming against my faith. They just were like, no, I want to win, and I'm like, but I want to win, and so I started to get really frustrated. And then I started to realize, wait a minute, I'm not really operating from a place of peace anymore. And so as I started to really probe into that, I really felt like God opened up my eyes and said, you know what, Pat, it's not just about winning. It's not just about doing this. It's about growing with the people that God's put in your place and in place with you. And the other thing that took place is I started to shed what I would call a judgment mentality, where I was like, from my Christian kind of roots, if you will, I was judging things in good, whether things were of the Lord and not of the Lord, right? And so what started to take place there is I became very judgmental, and then I had to live with that decision that I had made. And when I started to shift more towards a kingdom mindset and loving the people that God had brought in, I started to see the good in them. I started to see the excellence in them. And I also found that some of them, many of them, had made a choice to pursue Christ, but they were kind of struggling with all the things that I was struggling with, and so I think the goal became listening. But I think it was through that frustration. The other thing I'll add too is, and we don't have time for it on this show, but I grew up with a huge approval addiction problem, in that I not only wanted to serve Christ, but I also wanted to get approval from corporate leaders, because I believed in my system that I couldn't grow and prosper unless the men and women that were above me allowed me to grow. And so what that did is it created a huge pressure where I was really trying to serve Christ on one side, and I was really trying to serve the system on the other. And eventually that caused a collapse and an event around complex PTSD, where I really lost my connection, my ability to connect emotionally with my family, with work, became a workaholic. And in the healing of that, that's when I really started to embrace much deeper these concepts around kingdom and love, not only love for myself, but love for others, and really appreciating the value that individuals bring to the table. And then as I'm loving, then that gives the Holy Spirit an opportunity to draw people into the kingdom. I don't have to be in evangelism freak. I can actually be a lover of Christ and love others with that deep love that he laid his life down for me. And that creates opportunity for the Holy Spirit then to minister. And then people will oftentimes reach out and say, share your faith. What is your anchor of truth in what you're doing? And so those are the types of things that maybe I would list out, maybe a little bit more than what you expected in an answer, but those events that took place really caused me to embrace my kingdom mandate even more and respect and honor those around me.
Love it. Would you mind taking a moment as we're kind of closing out today, just to pray, whether it's a declaration, an impartation, however you'd like to do it. But for those that are watching, those that are listening, that have grabbed hold of something today, that'd be amazing.
Awesome. So, Father, I just ask you to help us receive your truth, your kingdom truth. If there's anything that's been spoken today that resonates with individuals, Father, that you would help us receive what you have for us in everything that we do. And we just ask you, Lord, to show us and guide us. And we purpose, Lord, not to worry, but to wonder how you can bring about change, that we would wonder how in difficult situations you can bring about a solution that would be absolutely game-changing and rock the planet. But we desire to partner with you in everything that we do. And we desire also, Lord, not to make a decision without actually inviting you in to complete the insight that we need in order to make the decision. So I just bless the audience with that. And I just ask you, Father, to show us your truth. Help us to receive it in everything that we do. In Jesus' name, amen.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Patrick. Again, check out the book on Amazon December 1st. You can also go to growthmatrixllc.com to learn more about what Patrick is doing. Thanks again for taking time, man. We really appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for listening, tuning in, everybody. We'll see you next time on the Divine Advantage podcast.